inside the slide, girl, by my side, girl.
Live from Studio F, it's Fox and Friends for a Monday. A very special guest right over here on the new curvy couch. Hey, look, it's Ivanka Trump, special advisor to President Donald J. Trump.
It's so nice to be here.
Welcome. We're
Great
so
to have
glad
you.
to have you.
I join you almost every morning, just not on the couch.
What do you
So
think of
it's
our new
extra
studio?
special to actually be here. It's amazing.
Right.
It's amazing. So the people, the location, the studio, it's great. So it's a pleasure to be here.
And of course, how often you live in New York these days? How often are you here?
I don't get here nearly as often as I would like. So
Main
we've been a
difference?
little bit busy down in Washington.
You've been spending a lot of time down in the swamp.
Very, very busy, but I actually came up for an amazing occasion. My sister-in-law Laura had a baby shower, which was very,
I saw the
very sweet.
pictures.
So it was great. We had an amazing time, all family, and just everyone came in for it, and it was really sweet.
Yeah.
I brought my daughter Arabella, who asked me if we were bringing Theodore to have him showered. And then I realized baby shower is not a self-explanatory term.
Yeah. I have to
If you've never heard it before,
loses
so
it.
it's
Right.
very
There's
sweet.
certain things you can't Google.
Yeah. So where's Theodore? Why isn't he coming?
So last week, everybody was focused. I think the 9 million people were watching in the middle of the day. They lost 33%. We lost 33% of our productivity because everyone was watching James Comey speak. What did you think? What do you think came out of that? Where did you watch it? What do you think emerged?
Well, my father felt very vindicated in all the statements that he's been making and feels incredibly optimistic. But, you know, at the White House and throughout the administration, we were incredibly focused on the reason we all went to Washington and what we're fighting for. So last week, while it didn't get the level of headlines, it will ultimately have a much more important impact, was Infrastructure Week, focusing on the commitment to rebuild this country, rebuild rural locations which have fallen into great disrepair, repair our waterways, air traffic control. So there were a series of very important and big and far-reaching initiatives on infrastructure. This coming week is about workforce development. So with all the noise, with all the intensity that of the media coverage and obviously what makes headlines. Ultimately, we're really focused on why the American people elected Donald Trump as their president
People say
and
jobs,
implementing
jobs,
that plan.
jobs. And that's why
Jobs.
you, your dad, Secretary of Labor, you're going to Wisconsin tomorrow to
We
meet
are.
with kids that are taking classes at the technical schools?
We're visiting one of the great examples of skill-based learning and skills-based education, a technical school in Wisconsin, which we're very excited about, to talk about the skills gap and to really highlight the fact that there is a viable path other than a 4-year college experience. So really investing in vocational education, skill-based training. There are 6 million available American jobs. So we're constantly hearing from CEOs that they have job openings, but they don't have workers with the skill set they need to fill those jobs.
Right.
So really bridging that gap and bringing experience-based education to the forefront. So apprenticeship. Actually, that's
Something
the
your
model.
father's familiar with.
He knows
The
it very well,
Apprentice.
and it's worked throughout the world. And it's something we've de-emphasized here in favor of 4-year traditional college. But they don't have to be mutually exclusive.
And as somebody who's run her own business, this is something personal to you because I'm sure there have been situations where we love to hire people, but we can't find the people who have the right skill sets.
It's true. And while it's not a woman's issue, it disproportionately affects women and minorities, especially when you think out into the future, where the available jobs today and the future jobs are coming from. A lot of them are in STEM-related fields, so science, engineering,
So teach
computer
them,
science.
train them today for the jobs of tomorrow.
Well, women are, for example, while we represent 47% of the overall workforce, we only make up 23% of STEM-related occupations. So we're moving in the wrong direction in terms of our participation, and that's something ultimately we need to change.
Right.
We'll encourage at K through 12, but also retraining for workers whose jobs have been displaced. So we have a huge emphasis on it this week, and it's critically important, and I think we can make a very big impact.
But not only that this week for the administration, but in your book, you put your money where your mouth is. You have women who work out there, breaks down this whole issue, especially from the female perspective, because you've gotten a real handle on it. In the big picture, the 62% of the workforce that's working is more important than the unemployment number, perhaps, because a lot of people can work. They can't find a job that matches up with their skills. In some cases, they choose not to work.
Yeah, and we need the full participation. So many people are also working jobs that are part-time. And it's an enormous problem in this country, the number of part-time workers who are working 2 and 3 jobs that collectively they're making less than when they worked one job that's been replaced, and they don't have access to leave, to vacation, to holidays, to traditional benefits. So that's another problem that we're very much looking to address.
So this week, the White House is going to be talking about these things. Next week, Congress takes over, and there's a bipartisan bill that could inject $1 billion into this kind of stuff.
The Perkins Act, and it's been. It's a very good piece of legislation, so they're refining and extending it. But it's all about skills-based education and really making sure people have the technical skills to succeed in this modern economy. So we're very excited, and this is honestly what it's all about. I mean, we moved down to Washington. We want to be helpful. We want to do big things, important things, and there's nothing more important than enabling people.
Is it harder than you thought, though? Is it harder than you thought to stick to the things you want to do because of what keeps coming up, whether it's the Russia investigation or something else?
It is hard, and there's a level of viciousness that I was not expecting. I was not expecting the intensity of this experience, but this isn't supposed to be easy. My father and this administration intends to be transformative, and we want to do big, bold things, and we're looking to change the status quo. So I didn't expect it to be easy. I think some of the distractions and some of the ferocity was I was a little blindsided by on a personal level. But for me, I'm trying to keep my head down, not listen to the noise, and just work really hard to make a positive impact in the lives of many people. I mean, if you want to, at the end of the day, if you want to think about difficult, it's the factory worker who's been laid off. Difficult is, the mother who's lost a child to opioid abuse. So these are the real challenges, and I think that does put it in perspective for me. Every time we get out into the country and meet with American people who are very optimistic about what's happening, and they see the economy and it's just booming. Small businesses have this sense of just vigor, and I was talking with somebody the other day who was referring to it as the animal spirits of small business owners have been released. So there is a tremendous energy, but there's also real challenges, and that's what we're looking to address.
Your father had his first foreign trip. What was your reaction? What are some of the highlights from that trip for you?
And that's what we're looking to address.
Your father had his first foreign trip. What was your reaction? What are some of the highlights from that trip?
It's a family trip.
That was an incredible trip, and
Jared was there.
Yes, Jared was instrumental in organizing and planning it, and it was wildly successful. So Saudi Arabia alone, if you think about the historic nature of gathering 54 Muslim and Arab leaders to talk about the goal of eradicating terrorism.
It was America
and to have
that we
a
missed
collective effort. It was amazing, the leadership that my father showed, the way he was able to foster real dialogue, substantive dialogue, that not only concluded in billions of dollars, almost $400 billion of business for American businesses, which was an amazing thing in and of itself, but the fact that there was able to be the substantive dialogue with these 54 leaders about how they'll collectively join to stop funding terrorism. There were commitments signed where there would be coordination to ensure that nobody was funding.
And then from Saudi Arabia, the direct flight into Israel made history that had never happened before.
And it was the first time a sitting president was at the Western Wall and had visited the Kotel.
What was that like for you? Because you converted to Judaism. I know you and Jared your religion, your faith is extremely important to you. What was that like as a convert to be there in Israel and to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister?
Every day in this experience has been surreal, but that was truly an unbelievable moment. So I feel blessed and privileged to have been there. It was deeply personal for me, as you note, so standing at the Western Wall in a moment of privacy, because it was really just us. It was our family that was there. It was beyond special. So really, it's hard to, for each of these moments, it's hard to find the words to adequately describe them, and then to move on to Rome and to meet with the Pope. So to have covered the 3 largest world religions over the course of 4 days, it was deeply meaningful.
Well, the reviews came in, and everybody said he did such a good job, very presidential. I want to ask you, though, personally, you've lived most of your life here in New York City. Now you've relocated to a nice neighborhood in Washington, D.C. It seems like every time you go outside to get a cup of coffee or take the kids out to the park or something like that, people are taking pictures of you.
That is a weird experience.
Right?
Every day there are photographers.
Look what she's wearing.
Yeah, no. So I'm looking for alternative routes out of my home, but it's there's a scrutiny and there's an interest that exceeds anything I had ever experienced before. But DC has been an amazing place. The kids are thriving, and ultimately for me, that's the number one most important
Ivanka,
thing.
I'll tell you,
if the kids weren't happy, it would be very hard for me.
Yeah, no kidding.
And they really love it down there. So
does your husband like his job?
He loves it. I mean, talk about impact. You saw the results of so much of his hard work on display in Saudi Arabia and in Israel and subsequently in Rome. But aside from what he's doing on the foreign policy front, also the various initiatives he's focused on at home, really thinking about modernizing and innovating within government. We saw just this week an incredible announcement with Secretary Shulkins from the VA about how they're going to integrate their systems for the first time with the Department of Defense, which is something that they've been trying to do for 20 years, so that there could be continuous care for our soldiers as they leave service. So this is arguably the most important thing that's happened administratively within the VA in decades, and it just shows there's a real focus on getting things done and getting big things done. And obviously, my father has made taking care of our veterans his highest priority and is just laser beam focused on it.
So what about the talk of Jared clashing with the inside? Is that any of that true?
There is a 24-hour news cycle that gets fed by and is encouraged by lots of salacious details. But at the end of the day, we're all focused on the work, and that's very true for Jared. So he's somebody who just likes to get things done.
I know
so he doesn't get involved in sort of all of that.
I know you're going to Wisconsin. You're going to be talking to the voters and to the people, to the core of this great country. We're going to come down to Washington later in the week and talk to you about that. We appreciate you sitting down with us.
I can't wait. I look forward to it.
All right, great to see you, Ivanka.
Great to see you.
Great.
When we come back, Evander Holyfield, Stuart Varney. One of them's a really good boxer. I don't know which one.
And Kellyanne Conway.